Every single embarrassing moment of that night is still vividly in my mind, like a terrible tattoo. Elena, my wife, insisted that we have dinner for her coworkers and their spouses because she wanted to build relationships, network, and improve her reputation at work. One refrained from arguing. I didn't. I spent hours getting everything ready, including cleaning the house, cooking a 3-course dinner, and chilling the wine. I aimed to make an impression on them. I wished to honor her. Everything appeared to be going smoothly for a while. The visitors showed up, praised the cuisine, and relished the ambiance. It was a friendly, even informal, talk. I relaxed, thinking that perhaps this wouldn't be as horrible as I had initially thought. Then it took place. The subject changed while Elena was drinking her 3rd glass of wine. It began with a sufficiently harmless conversation about relationships. One of her coworkers expressed his gratitude for having a supportive wife. Another coworker joked that marriage is a team effort. Elena then burst out laughing, and I was aware. That laugh was familiar to me. The one not to be taken lightly. The one that indicated she was going to say something that would make me wish I had never been born, she said, leaning forward a little and speaking a little too loudly for the situation. You know what's funny? When we first met, I thought he'd be this amazing catch, tall, successful, impressive in all areas. She gave all a dramatic wink to underscore it. The table echoed with laughter. My stomach constricted. Her coworker's spouse smiled and complied, and he isn't. I tried to ignore it with a smile. Just husband and wife teasing, huh? But Elena was far from finished. Pinching her thumb and index finger together with hardly any room between them, she raised her hand. Well, let's just say, some things don't measure up to expectations. The room exploded. Laughter. Out loud. Unmanaged. As my so-called friends laughed at my expense, I felt the blood rush to my face and my ears boil. I made myself laugh. Perhaps it wasn't so horrible. Then again, she continued, honestly, it's like being married to a teenage boy, quick to start, quicker to finish, if you know what I mean. There was a cough. A tense laugh ensued. Now, even the laughing was fading. She refused to stop, though. Sometimes, I wonder if I should buy him a booster seat for dinner. Even the wife of her coworker, who hardly knew me, attempted to divert the conversation. Elena simply waved her away, though. No, really, it's fine, she smiled, making a mock toast with her glass. We all carry our own burdens. Mine's just smaller than most. More uneasy giggles. My face was burning and my stomach was churning as I sat there with my hands gripped beneath the table. I was unable to look at anyone, since I witnessed it. The sympathy, the shame of secondhand. It's the expression people give you after witnessing something they can't erase. Not only was I humiliated, I was revealed. At my own dinner table, Elena had stripped me bare my manhood, my dignity, my confidence. What was the most painful thing? The shame wasn't the only thing. It was the cold, heartbreaking reality that my wife, who was meant to be my closest ally and partner, was the one tearing me down for sport. The tipping point on autopilot. I got through the remainder of the evening. Plates are being cleared, refilling beverages. When I should have smiled, I smiled. I was laughing when I should have been laughing. But within, something was shattering. My perception of my marriage was changing fundamentally. I was impressed by my wife's appearance, how I perceived myself. Elena collapsed onto the couch, as if nothing had happened once the final visitor had left. She let out a big sigh, stretched, and kicked off her heels. Well, that went well, she exclaimed without realizing. I finally let myself feel the full impact of what had just transpired as I turned to face her. What the hell was that? She pretended to be innocent as she stared up at me. What? I added. You humiliated me, in a softer voice than I had anticipated. You mocked me in front of everyone. She rolled her eyes. Oh, lighten up, Luke. It was just a joke. Everyone has these kinds of playful jabs at their partners. You're being too sensitive. Overly sensitive. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling while she slept peacefully next to me. Her words kept repeating in my head. She had previously made remarks on my height, or how I act in bed. However, it was her first time doing it in public, so purposefully, and at last I recognized it for what it was. The signs were always there. Looking back as I lay there in the darkness, memories began to resurface. A steady flow of minor wounds, cuts I had disregarded, rationalized, and accepted as usual. She had gradually worn me down over the course of our 8 years together. Her remarks were gentle at first, disguised as jokes, according to helpful suggestions. She used to advise, maybe you should wear shoes with thicker soles, before we went to functions with her coworkers. It might help you look more authoritative. I dismissed it with a giggle. I assumed she was just being realistic. The comments about the bedroom followed. They were soft prods at first. Then, they turned ruthless and rude. One night, frowning, she had questioned, "Is that it? Already?" Or worse, a roll of her eyes or a sigh. She had repeatedly turned her back on me, whispering, "Don't worry about it," as if she'd grown accustomed to it by now. I also made a greater effort to win her approval, to bring her joy. She needs a male to fulfill her desire. However, nothing was ever sufficient, and she simply shrugged when I received a promotion at work, which should have been a cause for rejoicing. She had remarked, "That's nice, I guess. They must not have had many options this year." She had then turned the conversation to herself. The epiphany that revolutionized everything I noticed. She had uploaded pictures from the evening when I was looking through her Instagram the night after the dinner party. Amazing dinner with amazing friends and my amazing husband, who made it all happen. Couple goals, remarks, and heart emojis were common in the comments. Then it dawned on me. I had 2 separate marriages at the time. The one she created online, the public one, and the private one, where I was reminded of my inadequacy all the time. And I came to the stunning realization when morning light came in through the bedroom curtains. It wasn't love. This was mistreatment. And for years, it had been taking place. Everything was the same the morning after the dinner party. The coffee was still brewing in the kitchen. The sun was still shining through the curtains. And Elena continued her daily activities as if nothing had occurred. However, something had changed. Me. I had changed the way I was staring at her. I wasn't dismissing anything. My instinct told me something was seriously, profoundly wrong, and I wasn't ignoring it. I was listening for the first time in 8 years, and my stomach turned at what I saw. Observing the indications, Elena has never shared her phone with anyone. That was nothing new. Now, though, I now recognized it for what it truly was. She always kept an eye on it. Never. The phone accompanied her if she entered the kitchen for even 5 seconds. It sat on the counter if she was in the restroom, locked and guarded, never plugged in to charge. What about the calls? Every time, she led them to a different room. Her voice was always subdued. I initially believed I was exaggerating. After the dinner party, I realized that I had been overly sensitive. Then she made a mistake 2 nights later. She entered the room while she was still drying her hair from the shower, and I was in bed, browsing through my laptop. She turned to face the closet after tossing her phone onto the bed. Then it began to vibrate. I looked at the display. Work project lead. However, there was a preview of the message. "I'm already missing you. Last night was incredible. When can you get away again?" My blood froze. I glanced at the telephone. Next, my gaze shifted to her. She was unaware. She continued to worry over her attire while humming to herself, as if she didn't give a damn. And I did something I never would have imagined doing for the first time in our marriage. I took her phone. It also unlocks. Her password remained the same. Perhaps she didn't believe she had to. Perhaps she believed me to be too foolish, too gullible, and too pitiful to ever check. And perhaps she would have been correct earlier. However, it is no longer the case. The black and white truth. The texts went back several months. There are hundreds of them. Pictures that are explicit. In-depth reports about meetings at hotels. Arrangements for their upcoming romantic retreat. What's the worst? They mentioned me, as if I were some ignorant fool. The words, "He has no idea," were written by Elena, too busy trying to please me to notice anything. He'd asked, "Do you feel guilty?" "Guilty," was her reply. "It's refreshing to be with a real man for once. He should thank me for staying with him this long." I scrolled backwards. That's when I discovered it. Messages from the dinner party night. She'd texted her partner. He just sits there and takes it. He served dessert with a smile, despite the fact that I practically called him tiny and inadequate in front of everyone. It's almost too easy. And his answer? "That's because he knows he can't do better than you." I cautiously put the phone down, as if I were worried about getting burned. The space became hazy, my ears are ringing, and I wasn't even upset. Not quite yet. I simply felt numb. It seemed as though my mind required some time to comprehend the extent of the treachery, as if it took me a second to realize that the lady I had fought, supported, sacrificed for, and formed a life with had never shown me any respect. Not once. Never. The final straw, how long I sat there, is a mystery to me. All I know is that Elena's whole body tensed up when she eventually turned around and spotted me holding her phone. She said, "What the hell are you doing?" With no expression on my face, I gazed up at her. I read out loud, "Missing you already," in an unnervingly serene tone. "Last night was incredible. When can you get away again?" She stopped. The color left her face. "Luke," I demonstrated the phone's screen to her. The messages, the pictures, everything. "You were saying?" She was silent for the first time in our marriage. There is nothing to spin. There is nothing to deflect. Her instinct to fight or flee then took over. She sprang forward and snatched the phone from my hands without acknowledging anything, offering an apology, or even attempting to defend her actions. She growled, "You went through my phone? That's a complete invasion of privacy." In fact, I laughed, a deep, hollow laugh that was very unlike me. I cocked my head and said, "You cheated on me for 7 months, and that's what you're mad about?" Her eyes were flaming as she straightened her shoulders. In an attempt to sound hurt, she said, "I had a moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything." I said, "7 months of moments?" She winced. "You don't understand," she repeated, her tone changing. Now softer, beginning. "I've been under so much pressure at work. He was just there." I chuckled once more. "Wow." Her face was frantic as she stretched for my hand. "Luke, please. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. You and I withdrew my hand. "No, Elena," I muttered. "We can't." And I saw her face alter entirely for the first time. The mask fell off. The despair was gone. And where did it go? Fury, pure and blazing. She spat. "Fine," her voice suddenly icy. "You want the truth?" In contempt, she curled her lip and took a step closer. Sneering. "Yes, I was unhappy," she said. "What did you expect? You never satisfied me, not financially, not emotionally, not physically." My chest constricted. I didn't turn away, though. It was precisely what she desired. For me to shatter. For me to beg. For even a moment, I thought that perhaps I was to blame for this. Slowly, I nodded. "That's why I'm leaving," I stated in a firm voice. "I deserve better than someone who sees me that way." She chuckled. An acrid laugh. She sneered. "You? Better than me? Good luck finding someone who'll put up with your limitations." She made a contemptuous motion at my whole body, and something inside of me finally snapped when I really looked at her. Her love for me had never been genuine. She had enjoyed dominating me, diminishing me, destroying me in order to prevent me from ever having the guts to go. Now, though, she was now powerless. I inhaled deeply. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," I said. "The divorce papers will be ready tomorrow." She twisted her face. "You can't be serious." After grabbing my keys, I made my way to the door. She came running after me. Then she grabbed my arm and exclaimed, "Wait, we need to talk about this. You can't just throw away 8 years. I took her hand away gently. I responded, "You threw them away, Elena," as I looked into her huge, terrified eyes. One comment, one lie, one betrayal at a time. I then left. I left that residence without turning around. Not a bag. Not a bag. Only my phone, keys, and money. I felt something that I hadn't felt in years, even though the chilly night air was like a punch in the face. Liberty. With my hands holding the wheels so tightly that my knuckles turned white, I got inside my automobile. My thoughts were racing and my pulse was thumping, but one thought broke through the confusion. Nothing else will be taken from me by her. She had stolen my trust, my honor. I lived there for 8 years. But my cash, my future, no way. Bringing in reinforcements. As I parked outside my best friend Ryan's apartment, I texted him. "Me, in need of somewhere to crash." "It's not good." In a matter of seconds, Ryan called me. "Luke, what's going on?" "Elena has been unfaithful to me," I stated in a hollow voice. "For months. Quiet." Then a controlled, leisurely exhale. "Come up." Ryan was pacing the room like a caged beast, and I was seated on his couch with a beer in my hand before I even recalled entering his apartment. "Tell me everything," he insisted. So I did. The dinner gathering was held. The remarks, the written word had a profound impact on me. The way she and her partner had chuckled at my lack of character. Ryan appeared prepared to drive to my house and set it on fire by the time I was done. "That bitch," he silently said. "You should have left her years ago." "I know," I said forthrightly, "but I see it now, and I need to make sure she doesn't take anything from me when I leave." Ryan took out his phone and nodded. "You need a lawyer. You need a good lawyer. I know a guy." Legal Combat Ryan arranged for me to meet with Adam, a divorce lawyer, the next morning. I sat across from him, my stomach in knots, and I told him everything, the finances, the affair, and how she had been slowly destroying me for years. He folded his hands and sat back in his chair when I was done. "All right," he answered in a composed tone. "Here's how we make sure she walks away with nothing. First, cut her off." "The first thing you need to do," Adam responded, "is get your money out of reach." "You have joint accounts?" I gave a nod. "Move your half, now, before she drains it." I didn't waste any time. I moved all of my half into a new personal account that afternoon. After that, I froze our shared credit card by calling the bank. There is no need to continue paying for upscale hotel stays. Step 2, protect the resources. Adam inquired. "Who owns the house?" "It's in both our names," I put forward. He gave a nod. "Good. That means she can't just kick you out and keep it, but she might try to fight for it in the divorce." Without hesitation, I answered, "She can have it." Adam's eyebrows went up. "You sure?" I grinned. "Yeah, because she can't afford it without me." Although Elena worked, her income was insufficient to pay the mortgage on her own. My pay had been her lifeline, not with me. She was in a terrible spot. "Then let her keep it." Adam shrugged on his shoulders. "If she can't afford it, she'll have to sell it anyway." I gave a nod. Suddenly, I relinquished the house. The place where I had lived for 8 years was gradually being dismantled. Only 4 walls and unpleasant memories were present. It was hers to keep. Better was already being built by me. "Step 3, setting up the trap now," Adam responded. "We wait. Don't let her know you're making moves. Keep her thinking she's in control." And I did precisely that. I pretended to be the same helpless, pitiful spouse she believed she had broken for 3 days. I didn't respond to her texts. Allow her to spiral. Then, as Adam had anticipated, she took action. The last betrayal, I received an email at work on the 4th day. I initially believed it to be a fraud. An unknown sender attached a random paper. Then, the topic line appeared. Petition for spousal support in divorce filing. I selected the attachment, and there it was. She has provided me with a formal document outlining all of her demands. She wasn't merely requesting a divorce. She desired half of what I have saved, half of my capital, support from the spouse, my vehicle, my own automobile. In fact, I laughed. This lady, in front of her friends, this woman had made fun of me, cheated on me, and degraded me. She genuinely believed she was leaving wealthy. She genuinely believed she had deceived me. She didn't know. I grabbed my cell and dialed Adam. She filed, I acknowledged. Adam laughed. "And what's she asking for?" I went through the list. A pause occurred. Adam simply said, "Oh, this is going to be fun." The duel, I entered the lawyer's office 2 days later for our initial mediation of the divorce. Elena was already there, looking like the lead of a divorce drama on Hallmark. She had a flawless appearance, as if she had triumphed, as if she had already mentally wasted my money. My look was unreadable when I sat across from her. She called me Luke, as if she hadn't just tried to rob me of my money. "Elena," I said with a nod. Her attorney began to speak, enumerating her requests, everything to which she was entitled, all the things she believed she had secured. I gave them space to speak. Let them bury themselves. Adam quietly took out a big folder and slid it across the table after they were finished. Her lawyer flipped through it with a frown. "What's this?" Adam grinned and leaned back. "Evidence." I observed Elena's expression while she read. "The money moves between banks. The statements from the credit cards. The court records attest to the fact that I had already protected my assets." Her face turned white. She turned to a new page. The scandal, the receipts from the hotel, the messages. Her hands began to shake. "You didn't tell me about this," her lawyer said as he turned to face her. She merely gazed at me. She treated me as if she had never seen me before. I grinned. Quietly, I continued. You thought you were divorcing a fool, but you just declared war on a man who has already won. I got to my feet after saying that. She gasped. Luke, wait. As panic began to seep into her voice, I looked across at Adam. This is our last stop. I then left. Allow her to manage the consequences of her own choices. Without turning around, I left the legal office. Elena sat behind me, devastated, pale, and stunned. She had been so certain that she was in charge for months. She believed that by planning her spectacular departure, she would emerge wealthy, triumphant, and untouchable. And now, she had nothing now. Not my cash, not my possessions, not even her honor. What's the best part? She had harmed herself, the aftermath of a game that was lost. I didn't hear from her for the first 2 days following mediation. Don't text, no phone calls, not even an email that is passive-aggressive. And that, Elena wasn't like that. She wasn't the kind to concede. She was the kind that regrouped easily. She was planning her next course of action, so I remained alert, because I was aware that this was not yet finished. Then, the call came on the 3rd day. It buzzed on my phone. Elena. I gazed at the display. I nearly didn't answer. I was intrigued, though, so I replied, "Hello." Quiet. Then her voice, tentative, delicate, almost frail. "Luke." I reclined in my chair and gazed up at the ceiling. "What do you want, Elena?" She let out a sigh, an unsteady, lengthy breath. "We need to talk." I arched an eyebrow. "We did talk. At mediation. Remember? You filed for divorce. You lost. There's nothing left to say." A pause. A well-managed "I didn't mean for things to happen this way" followed. I chuckled. I was unable to resist. "Elena, don't insult me. You meant for things to happen exactly this way. You just didn't expect them to backfire." Quiet. Then she let out another sigh. I don't want things to be like this." It was there. It wasn't guilt that made her call. She didn't call since she felt bad about cheating. She realized she had no backup plan, so she called. Her ambitious plan had failed, and she was fumbling now. However, I wasn't a moron. I had loved a woman who had no issue deceiving me for far too long. I had squandered too much effort to think she was someone she wasn't. And at this point, I wasn't going to allow her to control me. "Elena," I continued with a calm tone, "you made your choice. You filed for divorce. You tried to take everything from me. And now that you've lost, you suddenly want to talk?" She took a short breath, obviously startled by my directness. "It's not like that," I sneered. "It's exactly like that, and you know it." Quiet. Then she fell silent. "Are you really going to throw everything away like this?" I tightened my jaw. "Discard everything?" Me? I had battled for this union. I had cherished her, admired her. Together, they built a life. It was she who tossed everything out. She had decided to tell a falsehood, to pilfer, to turn on me. And now she wanted to blame me for this. With a steady voice, I let out a leisurely exhale. I whispered, "You already threw it away, Elena. You just didn't expect me to do something about it." Her breath caught. She was speechless for the first time, and I only needed it. "Goodbye, Elena." I hung up, and now I experienced no emotions. Not rage, not regret, not even a sense of relief. Only a stark, icy certainty. She had decided. I had also made mine. When she acknowledged it was over. After that, I'm not sure what Elena anticipated. Perhaps she assumed I would get in touch. I would break that. I would give her a final opportunity to re-enter my life. However, I didn't. I paid her no attention. I paid no attention to her at all for the first time in 8 years. And that, she was broken by that. 3 days later, when I returned to the house to gather my belongings, I witnessed it myself. I was accompanied by a police escort because I was acquainted with Elena. I was aware of her methods. She would attempt to cause a stir, try to make me the bad guy, try to get me into a fight so she can use it against me later. However, when I entered, she didn't yell. She didn't toss anything. She simply stood there with her arms folded tightly across her chest, watching me with red-rimmed eyes. She growled, "You called the police on me?" I kept my eyes off of her. "I'm just here for my things." I moved by her on my way to the bedroom. As I gathered my remaining possessions, she trailed behind, lingering in the doorway. She remained silent for some while. "And lastly, what about all the good times?" I continued packing. She pressed, "You're just throwing everything away?" I stopped, and carefully placed a framed picture from our honeymoon on the table. "No," I replied. "You did that when you decided I wasn't enough." Quiet. Then her voice, now softer. "I never said that." I looked over my shoulder at her. "You didn't have to." Her final hopeless effort. She made her last move as I picked up my box and headed for the door. She said, "Your name is still on the mortgage," without pausing. "You're still responsible for half." I gave a nod. "The lawyer will sort that out. Sell the house if you need to." She twisted her face. "I can't afford it alone," she said. I gave a shrug. Not my problem anymore. And that was the tipping point. Her face changed from one of desperation to one of rage. She growled, "This is precisely why I needed someone else. You're too weak to even fight for our marriage." I looked over at her. I stared at her for quite a while, observed her closely. I realized the reality at that same instant. I had lost her, but she wasn't some divinity. She was no unfortunate victim. She was simply little. A self-centered, insecure individual who had bolstered themselves by discrediting others. She had no one left to manage anymore. I inhaled deeply. I said plainly, "I'm not fighting for something that hurts me. That's not weakness. That's self-respect." Her gaze expanded. Because she understood for the first time, she could no longer control me. There was nothing left for her. As I shut the door behind me, I turned and left, letting out her first genuine cry. The sound followed me down the driveway, uncooked, unmanaged, and oddly fulfilling. I never turned around once I left that house. I could feel the weight leaving my chest and the invisible chains finally coming loose as soon as the door closed behind me. I had been trapped in a marriage for 8 years, where I was continuously made fun of, denigrated, and made fun of. I had spent 8 years trying to fit in with a woman who never gave me the sense that I was enough. And now, I was free now. Grasping the driving wheel, I climbed inside my automobile and inhaled deeply of the crisp, chilly air. And I grinned for the first time in a very long time, because my past was Elena, and it was up to me to write my future. The months that made all the difference, I initially believed it would be challenging. Getting out, beginning anew. We are leaving behind everything we had created together. However, I was mistaken. I came to a realization the instant I took her out of my life. It had been years since I was happy. What would happen without her? At last, my life was returning. Regaining my life, I took care of myself. I signed up for a gym. I wanted to feel strong again, not to prove anything to anyone. I began going to therapy because I had to confront the years of harm that I'd come to accept as normal. I made contact with friends I hadn't seen in a long time. Elena had gradually driven them from my life. I went back to cooking, meals that I liked, free from her criticism. For the first time in a long time, I picked up my guitar. And now, I performed for my own enjoyment, not for her, not for approval, just because I adored it. She spiraled instead of moving on. But Elena, she wasn't feeling too good. She initially made an effort to appear unconcerned. She pretended to be doing well by sharing photos of her new life on social media, including her smiling at bars and on excursions with her friends. Then the fissures were apparent. First came the texts. "I don't understand how you could throw everything away so easily. Do you really not miss me at all? Luke, please, can we just talk?" I disregarded each and every one. The calls came next. Voicemail after voicemail, her tone fluctuating between despair and rage. Then she arrived at my workplace and caused a commotion. Security had to escort her out. It was pitiful. She missed me, but that didn't make her angry. She was angry because she could no longer control me. And that, the one thing she couldn't manage was that. Karma's inevitability. A random number texted me 3 months after I left. I almost overlooked it at first. I read the message, though. "You should see this." A screenshot was attached, a thread of text. The name of Elena is at the top. The messages? To me, they weren't. To him, they were. Her partner was involved in an affair. All of a sudden, it all made sense. The funds are absent from our accounts. On the phone, the murmurs. The intention is to start fresh. She was going to steal my money and abandon me for him. Now, though, she had lost both now, because he wasn't responding to the previous communication. He had abandoned her. Her most recent SMS message, "Please answer me." I don't know what to do. I breathed out slowly. She had been contacting you for that reason. She had turned into her own greatest adversary. She believed she understood everything. Now, though, she had nothing now. No cash, not a lover, no strategy. Furthermore, for the first time in a very long time, I was at peace. The closure was wordsless. I didn't answer, didn't reply to the text. I didn't even acknowledge that I had witnessed it. Since I didn't give a damn, she had already made her decisions. And now, she was forced to live with them now. She made another call later that evening. I took it up, merely to listen to her words. In a whisper, she said, "You saw it, didn't you?" I wasn't acting perplexed. "Yeah, I saw it." Quiet. Then came a feeble laugh. "It's funny, right? I mean, after everything." "Funny?" I interrupted, my tone piercing. "You lied to me for months, Elena. He had been plotting to steal from me for months, prepared to deceive me for months. And now you've been dumped by the man you believed you were leaving me for. And you think I'll chuckle?" She took a sharp breath as if my words had caused her physical pain. Excellent. She had never experienced true betrayal. She had planned all of this because she thought she would escape unharmed, believing that she would land softly. And now, she was fumbling now. She finally acknowledged, "I made a mistake," in an emotionally charged voice. "I don't know what I was thinking," I sneered. "You don't know what you were thinking? You stole from me, Elena. You misled me. While you were organizing our divorce, you had another man lurking in the background. Don't pretend that this was an accident." She remained silent for a while. Then she spoke in her quietest voice. "Can we fix this?" I nearly burst out laughing at the foolishness. Make this right? Nothing needed to be fixed. With a slow exhale, I tightened my hold on the phone. "Elena," I said in a calm, steady voice, "the instant you chose to turn on me, this marriage was terminated by you. You believed you were robbing me of everything, but rather, you lost everything. And now, you're by yourself now. I have nothing to do with that." Her breath caught. I believe it finally clicked for her for the first time. Her own life had come to an end, not mine. I sustained no damage. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't sitting in the dark trying to figure out what went wrong by reliving our past. I was already over it. Elena, too, she had to accept the consequences of her actions. I let the silence linger, allow her to bear the consequences of her decisions. The final words I would ever utter to her were finally said. "Goodbye, Elena." I then hung up, permanently. The true triumph. I saw her again 6 months later, while attending a friend's wedding. She stood by herself at the bar, staring at me from the other side of the room. She had a new appearance, thinner, weary, as if she had been drowning in the fallout from her own deeds for months. We looked at each other. I gave a courteous nod. I then looked back to my date, a woman who genuinely thought highly of me, and then I became aware of. I was already victorious.